Yeah. Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, at this point, you have kids telling on their parents online because they don't align themselves with the same political agreements. And I've seen some stories where uh, like a daughter, in her teens would posted a video of her mom getting in a fight with somebody during like a BLM protest, and then posting her parents' names and then their address on the post as if like to get them back because she's for it. And so like when you start to see stories like that, you're like, wow, where did we go wrong? Like at what point did we get to this place where this is even reality?
It's terrifying, honestly, and ultimately tragic, because if you think about it, um, the people that like that post, that are going to share her post where she's bashing her own parents or where she's doxing them,
Yeah.
um, they're not going to be there for her when she's in her 40s or 50s and miserable or something.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the replacement, that's going to fill the role of a family. That pleasure or that rush is fleeting, and
Yeah.
she's forever damaged the connections that she has to her parents, to the social safety net that we traditionally rely on, for what?
Yeah.
For the passing entertainment of strangers on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, you won't get the family support, but you'll definitely get the support of box wine and cats.
And cats don't give good hugs. Uh, and yeah, absolutely. It's so specific yet just poignant. I loved it, Lucas.
Well, I mean, there's a reason for these things. I believe that. So, as you know, I do music for over 5 years now, and in the music community, majority of everybody who goes to shows and concerts, they're quite liberal, very liberal. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in many cases, I found myself in my late teens and early 20s. I was like, oh, I guess if I'm identifying with some sort of side, I would say I'm a liberal person because to each their own, live and let live type of thing. Like, yeah, I'm all for it. Like, do what you got to do as long as you're happy with it, as long as you're not physically hurting other people around you because of what you're doing.
It's
But
a
the
fairly
more
moderate position. Yeah.
Right, and I think a lot of people can get down with that no matter what because it seems like the fair thing to do. But then I start to get a little older and I start to do more research, actual research, really try to educate myself and really get in there. And I end up finding out that in many cases, sure, I still believe in what I just said about the whole live and let live. But now more so than ever, you see people crossing over that line of they really are trying to push their ideologies onto you in a way that you're like, okay, I don't know if you think you're doing God's work or something, but the moment that you try to push it onto somebody, that's when I physically have a problem with it. I didn't before, but now that it's being shoved down my throat, now I do have to put my foot down. And so I personally have experienced friendships that have come to an end over the last 2 years or so due to those whole hype on activism over the last year and a half. Um, have you noticed like any sort of supercharge? I mean, this is kind of like probably an obvious answer. I want to hear what you have to say in regards to. It seems like we're winding up something that's about to pop off even bigger in regards to the energy that activism is starting to pick up. I don't know if you follow me here, but I
I
guess the
think I
question
do.
is like, do you see activism now? And I'm specifically talking about the United States. Do you think it's getting the results that they are trying to get? Do you think it's being efficient?
So I was recently talking with one of my colleagues, here in Utah, who is more of a moderate, and it was on like that widening gap between uh, the seemingly opposed radical left and radical right, and they were my colleague, they were bemoaning uh, what they saw as an insurmountable gorge or canyon that we'd never be able to recover from. That political activism, extremism in politics, or increasing polarization is just ruining everything. And we're getting to the point where we're either past or we're at the point of no return.
Yeah.
And it just depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess being ever the class clown, I was immediately like, well, if you're a reactionary like me, that's a good thing. It's just like, oh, it's great if everything just is wild and crazy, because then you can take advantage of the chaos or whatever. But my more serious follow-up response was that it really comes down to your own. Oh, it's telling me that my connection is unstable. Was any of that coming through?
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So, oh man, what was I just saying? I just lost. What was it? There was a specific turn of phrase or something that I was on.
So radical left, radical right, coming to a point of no return.
Yes. It ultimately comes down to one's own belief about the nature of man. And so if you truly fear your fellow man, if you are constantly paranoid about how evil people are, but that you can't trust your own neighbors, your own family members, then yes, the increasing polarization, the widening gap between the radical left and right is going to seem like something we've crossed the Rubicon, and we're past the point of no return. However, I guess by contrast, if you believe in the goodness of your fellow man, if you believe in a higher good, it follows that there's still hope. It follows that the majority of people that you know, the majority of human beings, will ultimately react more moderately, or there'll be a middle ground to be found. Whether or not it's visible right now or not is another question. And so, for me, as for me in my house, I choose to believe in the goodness of man. I choose to believe that there's still hope, and we have a long ways to go to repair all the damage that's been done in the increasing polarization of politics. But we're not yet to the point where we should start writing everything off. And for me, that just makes me a little bit happier, and it helps me approach my detractors, my most vocal opponents, with a little more humanity than I think I would normally be willing to cede or to give them, because ultimately I think, although I do believe in the goodness of man, I think that I'm a petty asshole and stuff. And so I think forcing myself to believe that other people are good, if not better than myself, keeps me happy, and it helps me make these interactions with people less automatically toxic and less ultimately destructive.
Don't be bringing any toxic masculinity around here.
I do try my best not to and stuff. So yeah, I'd say yeah, it's a mixture of both of both sides of or both camps, if you will. It is a mess, but it's not ultimately this isn't permanent is what I would like people to walk away with.
Platforms at Appropriate Culture. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.